Hello, everyone, and welcome to another business intelligence tip for the week. We thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to get into a little bit of a technical discussion on SQL Server date functions. Now, this is primarily tailored towards someone that's actually writing SQL statements or creating reports using SQL itself, which under the covers, most of them are using SQL in some way, shape, or form. But this is going to be tailored to those that are writing SQL. Now, there are many functions on the SQL Server side in regards to date. So I'm just going to go over a few of my favorites and the ones that I use the most, kind of what I'll say the real life working ones. So as I do that, I'm going to jump on over here to SQL Management Studio, and we're going to get right into it. So I have a blank canvas, as you can see, where I can type a SQL statement. So I'm going to go ahead and type just kind of a basic SQL statement. Select distinct R date, which is a field in a table from a table that I have out there called GL Trans. So you info reporting people will recognize this, and this is just basically a general ledger transaction listing, and there's a date column in there called R date. So as you can see, when I select that field, it brings up a date. Now, when you query a date on SQL Server, it's somewhat going to be dependent on how the person that defined the format of the date, what it shows up as. So what you're seeing here just happens to be what my default format is in the system. Now, when you're working with dates, there's many things that you're going to want to do. So the first and most common thing that I want to see is, what is the current date? Now, SQL Server has two different functions. There's probably more, but two that I see off and on. One is called getDate, and that will return the current date. So to do a function inside SQL Server, it's the name of the function with the parentheses. So getDate is one. And then there's another field called current timestamp. And I kind of interchange back and forth between these two. So if I go ahead and I run this, it's going to return each date and then the current date and the current date. So you'll see between each of these that it's returning that. So you can use either one, and I go back and forth. Now, I'm sure technically there's a difference. I think one is using the system date format and one is using the SQL Server date format. Between them, I believe it's getDate, but most of the time they're one and the same. So I kind of go back and forth between them. I usually don't get that fine-grained on the format within it. So those are the two date to get the current date. Now, if you want to just get the date that's part of a field, one of the functions, and there's a few here again, when you're converting on things, you can use a convert function, and I could say convert to date, and that will convert it to a date field. So if I go ahead and I run that, I'm just going to see the date without the time. Or the other data type is date time. And then there's also a date time 2. So you'll notice this is date time. If I do date time 2 and run that, it gets a little bit larger precision. I rarely use date time 2. I don't usually need to go that far down the chain. So I'm usually using either date or date time to do that. So to get the two formats. So those get you the formats and the current date. Now, some common functions that I use on date. There's a few of them out there, but one of them that I use a lot is called date add. And what date add is a function where you can take a specific increment of time and add it to the date. So I use this a lot where maybe I want the last 30 days or I want the last 10 years. Whatever you want to add a specific thing to get a date, I can say date add. Then what it's going to be is, what is the increment you're adding to it? And SQL Server has a number of constants that represent the date. So I could say date add D for days, and I could say 7. So I could add 7 days to it. So if I go ahead and I run this, it added 7 days to that function. Or I could say if I wanted 7 days back, if I say -7, it will do that. So 7/25, 2007 in this case. If I wanted to add years to it, I could do that a few different ways. If I start typing on my IntelliSense, it's going to show me, and you'll see that there's a number of different constants that it can use in different ways of doing it. But if I just say Y, it'll be years, and this will be 7 years back from that, whatever's there, or a year. I can type that. It's going to go back that way. So there's different formats you can use within it. Now we're going to use those constants of the different date parts. Those are called the date parts. So if you ever do want to look them up, you can call them date parts. So this is date add, and that's a way of either adding to or subtracting from a date a specific increment. Now, another function that I use a lot is getting specific values from that date. So maybe I want to extract the year from that date. What I can do is there's a few different functions to use. One is year. So if I do that, it'll give me the year. If I want the month, I can use the month function. It gives me the month number. If I want the day, I can use the day function, and it'll give me the day from that date. So it's day, month, or year of the date that you're looking at. So you can extract the specific part from that. Now, sometimes you might want a more user-friendly kind of looking item than just the month number. Maybe you want to say October. So SQL Server has a function called date name. Get rid of the Y in there. I guess I have to spell it right. Date name, where I can then say what it is I'm doing. So maybe I want the date name of the month of that date. So if I do that, it will now return the month name. So anytime you want that, I can do date name on that. Now, if I wanted like the day of the week, in this case, I can't just say day there. It'll give me the number again. But if I say weekday, and it will give me the user friendly. So if you want the actual friendly month or day, you can use the function of that. Now, where I use this a lot is something like, what day of the week is New Year's on this year? So I can say something like 01/01/2021. And so you notice I put quotes around it for the date. So this is going to say what day of the week is New Year's going to be. So we'll go ahead and run that. So coming up this year, New Year's is going to be on Friday of this year. Or what day is, Christmas in next year, 25. It'll be on a Saturday. So you can use the date name with the variable or the constant that you're looking at. Now, one other function that I use a lot is called date diff. A lot of times you want to know how many days away from something an item is, or how many years or something, or maybe something to that extent. So what I can do is I can say date diff, and then if I do a quote, I can say date diff, and I'll give it my 01/01/2021 and 01/20 or 15/2021 and month. In this case, I need to put in month over here. I should have put it over there first. About the end, the argument syntax. So date diff and months between those is 0 because it's all within the same item. If I say 3, it's going to say 2. Now, if I wanted the number of days, I could just say D. It was 73 days difference between those. And the days is the one that I'm using most often when I want to see how far apart two dates are. The other thing that I use this for is maybe to get someone's age. So let's say you know someone's birth date is, let's come up with a date. Let's say someone's birth date is 04/15/1975. So they're born on April 15th, 1975. And I want to know how old they are. So I can put from the current, here again, I can use to get the current date. I can use current timestamp. So, and here, I don't want to say days. I want to say years. So how many years are they from 1975 to today? Whoops, just a year. 45. So they're 45 years old if they were born in 1975 and based on today. So that's one way that I use to get age a lot within it. So that's another common function. So those are the most common functions. Now, how I end up using these a lot, there was an example there with the age, or maybe I want the last, I'll just say select star here. So we're going to get a bunch. So you'll just see a whole bunch of transactions come across here. So it's a whole bunch of transactions, but maybe I want the last 10 years of data. I would just say where our date, the field in the thing, is greater than or equal to the year of the current timestamp. So whatever the current year is. So if I did that right now, it would give me anything in the current year. But if I wanted the last 10 years, then I just subtract 10. I can say, even on this, the year of the transaction date is greater than or equal to the current year minus 10. So I don't have any. If I say 20, I'll get some. So they're all in 2008, this particular database. So you can get, I use those increments of getting the value minus. Now you could also use the date diff function, as I showed you in this last example. So you can use those. But those are the most common functions that I used with date. We had the getting the date parts by either the day, the month, or the year. To get the actual names of those values, we use the date name function. And then to increment or de-increment dates, we use the date add function. So those are the most common ones. I thank you for joining in the latest session, and we look forward to sharing with you in future sessions. So if you have any suggestions, please send it to info@dashboardgear.com. And until next week, good luck on your reporting challenges.